Hey everyone, thanks for joining me. This is April with the travelcollective.com and yourphototravelguide.com. So what I enjoy most is really been assisting people in planning their travels and showing them the hidden places, the small towns, the mom and pop places, the places that aren't always on the biggest tourism sites. You may not even always find them listed on Yelp or TripAdvisor. Sometimes it really requires a deep dive into the internet or finding a blogger who's really been to these places and is covering more than the typical places that you often see come up. So I was supposed to be doing a quick interview right now with another traveler, so I'm going to take this time real quick. We'll do a 15 minutes. I'm going to pop into TripAdvisor. I'm going to share the screen right now. And let's see if we can't help a few people in this video. I'm recording it. So let's pop into TripAdvisor. Let me hit share screen. So give me just a second. And we will see how we can make a go of this. So you should be looking at, make sure that that's full screen. This is from TripAdvisor. This post was posted, it looks like, on February 14th. So it's been a few weeks. We will be in Northampton starting October 16th. So it looks like they'll be starting their exploration right after Columbus Day, Native Peoples Day, which is a great time to start your trip. They've already done Rhode Island. We are not interested in returning to Boston other than to drop off the rental car. Can anyone offer us a route that makes sense for a week's trip ending in Boston? Wow, there's a lot to see within a week. Yeah, it says about a week. So I'm not sure if they've bought their plane tickets yet. It sounds like they have to go in and out of Boston, which, as we know, is probably the most economical. You will spend a little time getting out of Boston with a rental car, but they do have a nice rental car facility that's right there on site with the airport. So pretty easy once you get down there and pick up your car. There's lots of routes. It kind of depends on your interests. And I notice these two individuals, it looks like a couple, they didn't really give us much more than a route. Well, a route can be someone that really enjoys seeing a lot of different things and hopping out of the car, getting some photos, stopping to eat. They say they're feeling overwhelmed, which is true. That's one thing I often find with New England. If you do a search, New England itineraries even, I'm finding more and more bloggers offering itineraries. And that can be a good place to start for you and get some ideas going. I also I'm a big guidebook reader. And since I started doing this really before the internet became such a tool for planning travel, I have literally shelves of books just on New England, back roads, each of the states, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Maine, any of those. And there's some great guides put out by, the people that you'd expect, Frommers, Fodors, just to name a few. So even stopping, eBay is a great resource to get free books. I mean, books have gone down considerably in price. There's lots of e-guides, even if you go to Amazon. But circling back for my input, since I've been doing this for a while, looking at the dates, if foliage is a priority and just that feeling of fall, I tend to like to stick to Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, and even southern Maine, just to get that taste of the coastline. It looks like they are from Florida, so maybe they're not as keen to need to see the water or see the lighthouse or have a lobster meal, but for one night I always like to throw that in because it is within distance, whether you head out to Salem and Gloucester and the hook of land that you'll see if you pull out your map that's past Salem. That's always beautiful. Cape Cod's out there. You can't just drive down the road though along Cape Cod seashore. I found this out. There's so many houses built up that you need to park and actually walk to get to the water along there. So when you go over the bridge from New Hampshire and into Maine, it's easily right there. You can see the water. You can, head up to York. Beautiful, wide open beach with a beautiful view of a lighthouse. Lots to take in there. I highly recommend taking in southern New Hampshire. I noticed some other responses along those lines. It's lovely. You've got lakes with fall colors. You can rent bicycles. You can take a hike, pick up some food at some of the local country stores, which I always recommend. When you're planning each day, try not to over plan. I think that's easy to do. It's also a balance. I mean, it's good to have more plan than you plan to do, because that way, maybe you do get to something that looked great on paper, looked great on the internet, but maybe you're not in the mood that day to spend time in a museum or even walk around the grounds. Maybe you just feel like, sitting there and watching the leaves fall, or listening to the river along the Kank Highway, Route 112, which I highly recommend if you haven't done the Kank, even after October 16th. Yes, the leaves may have fallen. Yes, you may not have as much color, but it is such a classic drive. I still would try to include that. And there may still be pockets where you will find some color or some quiet and just that whole experience. Another area to look at would be making that loop from Boston, going north, hitting part of New Hampshire, going west across Vermont, the lower part of Vermont, and then coming back across the northern tier of Massachusetts. You've got the Mohawk Trail, which is, again, a beautiful drive. It's been established for years, so it's got, places to stop, views to take in. I think there's something called the Bridge of Flowers, small town, the lovely bridge that's become a pedestrian bridge where they've planted all kinds of flowers, hence its name. Lots of great little restaurants. Just be mindful, look at things that you like to do and try to put those into those plans as well. You'll find little wineries, Hancock Shaker Village, which happens to be in the upper northwest corner of Massachusetts. So there's a lot of things to possibly look at. Depends also what kind of lodgings you're looking at. I would be figuring out a route and looking at your lodging secondly, and then if there's any must-do places, research hours that they're open, because sometimes you really want to get to a particular restaurant, you really want to take in seeing the artwork of Norman Rockwell, whatever it might be, and some places do close even in fall early. Mondays they're closed, or Sundays, so you might want to have that in mind when you're looking at what you might want to do, and have some things that are must-dos. If you've never been to Salem and you have an interest in that history of, Salem goes all out in October. It can be very crowded, so you may want to do that midweek, or you might enjoy that bustle of the people, but sometimes you want to experience a historic cemetery, a historic place when it's more quiet. So again, balancing your type of travel, being around a lot of people, being around a few people. I love bed and breakfast. I think meeting others over breakfast, having a home cooked meal is super important. And often those locals, they love where they live. They really enjoy meeting us and have great places to share. They'll tell you, you're looking for fall colors or a short hike. Hey, I know this state park that's just a short 20-minute drive down the road, and I would go down there and take this walk. It's really easy. Or an overlook, or a 2-lane country road, something that's not always even on Google Maps, because again, sometimes when we run our Google Maps, it's just trying to route us the shortest distance between 2 points, and sometimes that cuts out the scenic back roads. So having a paper map to me is always a great thing to have with you, just to kind of get an overview of everything. So I'll do a quick reply to this after we get off this call. Let me go back to the forum quick and see if there's another person I can help answer while we're on this. And if you have a specific call, I do free consultation calls. You can find me at yourphototravelguide.com. Reach out at april@aprilart.com. Drop me a short email. Tell me what you're thinking about planning. Here's one: help planning 9-night trip. This was posted yesterday, so I may try to reach out to these people. They're from South Wales. I love trying to help people. Again, my name doesn't always come up when people are looking for help, but I've been going back to New England for well over 20 years. Plus I have all the past knowledge of my parents and others who took these road trips and went to New England every October. We are two 60 something adults, no kids, and have booked flights to and from Boston for mid June. Okay, so they're not interested in fall colors. They're still, New England is such a wonderful time to go. Mid June, you are going to be having more families, more crowds, so keep that in mind. They're struggling to put a road trip together due to there being so much to see. And this is common. There is so much to see. You do have the benefit of longer hours of daylight during June. I did a road trip in June and I did find I was able to do more just because I had more hours of daylight to play with. The restaurants stay open a little later. I can be at the lighthouse. Some of the state parks, they don't close till sunset. So if sunset isn't till 7 or 8, I've gained a couple hours there. So then I can actually maybe sit down for a restaurant at lunch and not worry that it's eating into my limited time. They noticed that they've booked their first 3 nights in Boston. I would definitely, if you're new to Boston, check out, there's free tours on foot that are done in Boston, very knowledgeable guides. Get the Freedom Trail map, check that out. There's also some specific guides that will craft you a walking tour to see as much as you want and share the history as you're walking and take you to little hidden places to get the best donuts, stop for lunch or lobsters or any of that, popping in and seeing these maps in a hotel lobby that you might not have known existed, things like that. So oftentimes spending money for a guide that's walking with you and will take you is well worth the money. But if you're trying to save money, things like the hop on, hop off bus, free tours on foot, look at the libraries. In the United States, many public libraries offer walking tours as well. Sometimes they're inside the library, which are beautiful structures. Sometimes they'll be in the historic area, which is near the library. And again, that offers a lot of opportunity to get a really great first foot into understanding the neighborhood, understand what's there, get some history, all of that. And also meet a local, because after the tour, when you tip them, you can ask them questions. Where would you eat? What's going on? What's a unique American thing to do? Especially if you're coming from another country, maybe you want to see a baseball game played at Wrigley, getting my baseball diamonds all mixed up, I'm sorry. Played at the field there in Boston. There's things that are specific, getting onto the campus at Harvard, finding out if you can do that. There's a planetarium, there's art museums, there's so much to see and do in Boston. Easily you'll have enough to do with 3 nights there. They booked the last 2 nights in Kennebunkport. Again, I love Kennebunkport. It's full of a lot of history. It's much smaller, much more compact. You might want to, depending on when your last 2 nights are, is pre-book your dinner reservation. Book it now. Do your research on your restaurant and book it now. Because some of those places, they are small, they fill up. Some of them during summertime can allow more seatings because they have an outdoor seating area. But again, they only have so many servers, so much staff to go and work with everyone. They have a car, but they're looking for ideas on where to stay for the other 4 nights. So they only have 4 other nights. Cape Cod and whale watching. I've spoken a little bit about that. You could easily spend 1 night and go out to, I now have to look up the actual name, but there is an area off of Cape Cod that's well known for whale watching. I did go in June, had an incredible time, got up early so I could do that, and then had the rest of the day to drive the Cape Cod Loop, go down to what they call the Hole, see the lighthouse. So that could be 1 day. Salem, if you have an interest in the witchcraft trials and that history, it may be of interest. I'll be honest, I was a bit disappointed in my last visit to Salem during the summertime, and maybe that was just it. It didn't have the same ambiance as I remember in fall, when the wind is blowing, the leaves are crinkling, all of that. In summertime, they've done a lot of, I don't know if gentrification is the right word, but they've done a lot of refurbishing of some of the old buildings. So you've got old buildings right next to what's a Victoria's Secret and, stores that you can see in London, you can see in New York, you can see in Boston, you can see almost in any major town in the United States or England for that matter. So that was a little bit of a turnoff. So depends how interested. Instead of Salem, I would want to go to Concord, where the first bridge, where the North Bridge is, where the shots were fired that kind of started some more of the Revolutionary War activity. There's some really old cemeteries up there where both British and American soldiers are buried. There's cute little, really much more history up there that I could feel versus what I got out of Salem. But again, that's just my input. You might also want to look at, I think it's called the Wave. I'd have to look at the name. Now, again, my mind is a little bit hot of a blank, but it's not far from Concord. It's got an old tavern restaurant, which is great for lunch. Henry Ford actually saved some of the buildings in this particular area, and it's well worth spending a couple hours there too. And that's near Concord. So I would look at that. You have the other 4 nights from Boston. You could go north up into New Hampshire. You could go south. You know, a lot of people like to do Newport. That'd be a little bit further drive. But if you're already looking at Mystic and Salem, Mystic's quite a bit of a drive south of, you know, Boston, but also doable within a day. I'll drop some suggestions for these people. There's a lot. I mean, 4 nights doesn't give you a lot, but it does give you some. And again, it depends on your interests. It's not clear if their interest is clearly in the history or in more of the nature. You know, this area has a lot to offer nature-wise. And I'd have to look to see again how doable the area near, again, it's a historic town that really has costume docents, really puts you in the mood of the colonial era and what America was at that time frame. Wish I had the name on my tongue, so sorry about that, but let's move on to another question and see what I can do here. So let me go back to search results, go back to the top of the forum, and you can go on TripAdvisor too if you're looking to plan a trip and post your question here too. It is free to do that, but I'm more than willing to hop on a phone call and see how I can help you as well. Let's see. This has been a while that they posted this, and they haven't gotten much response. Here, we'll try this one. New England autumn trip. It has had some responses. They're also from the UK. My wife and I are traveling to Boston late September and then touring New England for 2 weeks. I think 2 weeks is a good amount of time. They are coming late September. If it's late September, I think I'd head straight up to Vermont, in my opinion, if fall colors are important. I'd leave Boston, and in a few hours, you could be up in Burlington, Burlington, Vermont, up in the northwestern corner, up by Lake Champlain. The colors may not be full at that time in late September, being that they're near the lake there, but I do feel that's a good starting point. Stopping at Stowe and working your way across Vermont or even down, do a zigzag, go kind of angled into Vermont, then back over into New Hampshire, work your way. They mentioned they do want to go to Acadia National Park, and then work your way down the Maine coast. I do think that is completely doable. They're going to do the Nights of Boston at the beginning. I think I'd flip that, to be honest. I think the color in Boston is going to be at the end of that 2 weeks if you have any shot of it. Boston, like other large cities, because of the climate, the colors often turn a little bit later. So that's something to keep in mind. But again, I think I would, and it doesn't look like they've mentioned Burlington. So they're not planning to go as far as I would do it if I had an option. They're planning only to go to Woodstock. I would recommend booking in Woodstock right away. Lodgings have diminished in that area. It's become very, very popular due to bloggers, Instagrammers, and it is the quintessential New England town. But that said, for whatever reason, we don't have as many places to stay there unless you stay closer to the border with Hanover. There's a lot of corporates right there between Vermont and New Hampshire, which would be an area. You've got your Best Westerns, your Hamptons, those kind of things. But if you want to have that true New England, Vermont, upscale Woodstock experience, book your nights right away because those will go quickly. They do mention that they're going to head up to Burlington and then go to the White Mountains. They've kind of got this kind of zigzaggy thing I was talking about, and then going to Acadia. It looks like they've kind of got it mapped out. They're concerned that they have too many stops. They do have a couple long days of driving, I will say that. They're concerned that Burlington looks quite commercial. I don't think Burlington is as commercial as you might think. There are areas of Burlington, north of Burlington, up into the Vermont, what I call the Vermont Islands, up to North Hero, areas to the east of Burlington. You can easily spend some time in Stowe. Stowe is very beautiful. You're up in the mountains. There's a great drive to take up through the Notch. You also have that quintessential picture of the steeple in Stowe surrounded by the fall trees. There's actually a parking lot now there that you can park and get that image, which is quite helpful. I like the Burlington area personally. I think there's a lot in that area I would recommend to them offline to do. Is it too far? It might be adding a little bit, but then I don't know that I drive all the way to Acadia National Park unless seeing the national park is high on your list. I think you can get a lot of that scenery on the southern Maine coast. And instead of spending a lot of time driving, which is what you're going to do, focus on the small towns, the Kennebunkports, the Booth Bay Harbors, the Algonquin, and I could go on, Bath, Maine. I mean, some really interesting places that may allow you time to do an activity. Again, if you're going in late September, early October, you're going to lose the light by 6 o'clock. So you're either going to spend some of that time then driving in the dark, or you're going to eat up your daytime time doing some of the driving to get from place to place. So those are some options. I will put some comments on this and hope that any of these people will reach out. I do think I have a lot of great knowledge to share and definitely can work with someone if they give us some ideas on what's important. I mean, again, I can tell somebody, I think you can see what you can see and skip Acadia and skip going all that way north. But if your heart is set on doing that, then you need to do that, because otherwise you're going to feel like you flew all the way here from England and talked yourself out of doing something you really wanted to do. And we don't want that either. So that's what I've got for today. My name is April. You can find me again on yourphototravelguide.com. Fall photo trips, FALL photo, PHOTO trips, TRIPS.com. And April at aprilart.com. So thanks everyone. Have a great rest of your day and great travels to you. Book early. And if you have questions, I hope you'll reach out. Take care.